I'm going to start with a few notes on myself because I think they're important qualifiers for this talk. I've been an entrepreneur for most of my professional life. I run, and I'm still running, my boutique consulting firm. I have a few startups under my belt, some successful, some not so much. And last but not least, I have built and CEO'd a national company, of which I'm still part of as a strategic director. Anyways, all that to say that I've been doing this entrepreneurship thing for the better part of my professional life, specifically since I was 24. And I will not tell you how old I am today. But anyways, I wanted to do this talk as an absolute reaction to the mounds of confusing and conflicting information out there available for business owners, for startup entrepreneurs, for CEOs, and even for business managers. But before I start though, I wanted to let you know that if you're looking for an inspirational talk, this is most definitely not it. And feel free to fast forward, I won't be offended, not in the least. However, if you do need a bit of no-nonsense advice, then stay on. Hopefully, I can leave you with a few practical tidbits that you can use in your business or at your job as soon as you get back to it. So, in that spirit, here are 4 things I wanted to focus on. And I won't be able to cover every single one in exhaustive detail, but hopefully, what I will leave with you will be of some value. First, I wanted to talk about strategy, because that's what drives, or it should drive, everything in your business. I'm going to touch a little bit on brand and brand management, because that's the one thing I feel that has the least amount of understanding out there, but the most potential. You see, brands are not just fonts and logos and pretty colors. A brand is actually a very important financial tool and a tremendous asset to your business. I'm going to talk a little bit about execution and the discipline of execution, and I'm only going to leave you with 3 solid tips, hopefully. And last but not least, I'm going to give you a few fun wisdom nuggets that I've collected through the years, and mostly the hard way. Okay, let's get into it. Strategy. Strategy should be simple, but it's not easy. Maybe because there are many types of strategies out there. There's financial strategies, HR strategy, marketing strategy, sales or brand strategy, or even overall business strategy. And although they can all be quite different and have different goals, what they always have in common is that they follow the exact same process, or at least they should follow the same process. So whichever strategy you pick up and choose to attack or focus on, this process should apply no matter. Any decent strategist will tell you that 90% of the solution is a good diagnosis. And this is precisely where your strategy should always start. Study the past, look for failures, look for gaps, identify shortcomings and sore spots, look for what's not working and where you're spinning your wheels. Only a thorough diagnosis will allow for an effective cure. Also, keep in mind that when it comes to strategic goals, less is always more. Another popular definition of strategy, and for good reason, is what you choose not to do. So eliminate options and focus on maybe 2 or 3 key objectives. Allow yourself plenty of time for strategic thinking to ensure that you actually do get to the root cause of your problem, so you can address that and not just simply band-aid some of the symptoms. Your goals should have a time frame, should be measurable, and should always be trackable, but you already know that. However, articulate them with clarity though, and make sure they're simple enough so people can understand and get behind them. Eisenhower took 9 months to put together the strategy behind the D-Day Operation Overlord. He wrote it on 1 piece of paper and delivered it to the soldiers on the ground in only 3 minutes. Simplicity. Simplicity is always the key when it comes to strategy. So to recap, spend time and come up with a good diagnosis. Decide on which problems you need to tackle first and devise a plan to cure them. Diagnosis, strategy, and tactics. That's the process. And it repeats every cycle. And as a last piece of advice on this, as tempted as you are to pivot, always stay the course on strategy. Change the tactics to adapt, but hold the wheel on strategy. Once you're done the cycle, go back and run the process again. Run a diagnosis and readjust the strategy ahead as needed. Change will happen incrementally, so be patient. And most importantly, be consistent in this process. Okay, let's move on to brand. There's a whole lot to say on this topic, But here's what I want to start with. There's also a whole lot of complete nonsense out there when it comes to articulating what a brand is and what function it serves. A brand is very much a business tool. And if anyone is throwing at you the whole vision and purpose and value stuff, just run away. Chances are they don't know what they're doing. Well, at least as far as branding goes. And don't get me wrong, mission and vision have their place in your company. But you know what? Consumers don't care about that stuff. As much as you think they do, they actually don't. Almost none at all. And you know what? How I know that? Because when I go home and I open my fridge and I look at all the products, not one of them have I bought because the company believes in innovation or because they are agile and believe in inspiring growth through purpose or some other drivel like that. I bought them because I needed them, because they're available, and most of the time because I remember the name. I don't care that the mustard company believes in agility through innovation. I only care that the mustard is reliably good quality and it is on the shelf when I need it. But that doesn't mean that brands don't stand for things. On the contrary, that is precisely their function, to communicate to the consumer what they stand for. And your most important job is to build your brand's equity. In order to do that, the consumer will need to know that A, it exists, also known as awareness, and B, what it stands for, or the brand image. Focus on that, building your brand equity. And if you don't believe me that that is important, take a look at Apple's valuation to understand how much of it is attributed to the brand alone. And here are a few important concepts to pay attention to when working on your brand. First and foremost, follow the process I have covered. Get a good brand diagnosis, establish a brand strategy, and devise a tactical plan to accomplish it. To do that, make sure you market orient. Make sure you segment your market properly, build your customized funnels, decide on who you're targeting and what your positioning is to that target audience, and develop your brand codes and apply them consistently. And last but not least, mind your brand architecture, and that's for those of you managing multiple brands in your portfolio. Once you do that foundational work, keep in mind that there are two speeds to brand building, the long and the short of it. Mass marketing versus target marketing. Mass marketing is a long-term play. It's going to focus on your brand, and you will connect on an emotional level with your consumer. The targeted marketing is product-driven, focuses on sales activation, and employs persuasive messages to generate sales right now. But do both as much as you can and in equal amounts if possible. It ensures that you'll get the most out of your short term by exploiting the long term. One last thing to remember is that when it comes to brand building, awareness is the hardest to achieve because it takes time and it takes a consistent effort to claim real estate in a consumer's mind. And like with everything else, unless you measure it, you cannot track it. And if you cannot track it, you cannot improve it. Settle on what brand metrics are important to your brand and track them. Okay, one last thing I wanted to touch on is the discipline of execution, a vast field. And I'm only going to give you a few useful tips. You can have the smartest strategy and you can have the best tactical plan, but unless you learn to execute, things will fall apart. And again, I will pick out a few things that I think are important to remember and that will hopefully set you on a good path. First and foremost, funnels. Funnels are a critical part of strategy and execution because they allow you to see where things are not working. One word of advice though, generate your own custom funnels because they represent your consumer journey from awareness all the way through to purchase. Your sales funnel will let you measure and compare your conversion rates as you move through the stages so you can optimize where the numbers are below par and need improvement. The second thing, scoreboards. Okay, scoreboards. This is by far the greatest tip I have learned. And I know it will sound obvious, but like most obvious things, they tend to be overlooked a little bit. One of the key elements of a successful execution plan is building a compelling scoreboard. I'll tell you why. And I'm going to borrow a hockey analogy because Barry. When you play for fun and shoot the puck around on the ice, things are laid back and pretty loose. But the minute a scoreboard goes up, things get a bit competitive. the game gets a little bit faster, and the players always attempt to play better when they keep score. Same exact things applies to your business. A good scoreboard will tell your teammates where you are instead of where you should be. Your scoreboard should be simple to understand at a quick glance. It should tell you whether you're winning or losing. It should keep the team accountable to each other. And last but not least, it will allow you to make very quick pivots. Scoreboards matter a whole lot. And the last thing I'm going to say about execution is that you cannot do it alone. It is so important to find good people, find talent, and keep them challenged. You cannot do epic things with mismatched people. Invest in them, help them get better at their stuff, build them up, support them, and reward their efforts. Do that 1,000,000 times over because people will always be your competitive advantage, always. And look, business is fun. Business is also hard. And much like life, it teaches you all kinds of good stuff. And here are my nuggets, the ones that actually hurt the most. 1, hire slow, but fire fast. 2, it's not an expense issue. It's a revenue one. You'll always be tempted to cut, but continue to invest in your business instead. It is the hardest lesson to learn and the first one you forget when you panic. 3, your gut is your experience nudging you. Pay heed to that. 4, always design from the outside in. Look, the market doesn't care what you think. The market only cares about what it wants. 5, simple is not easy, but so smart. And smart is really good business. Aim for that always. 6, just because it's old doesn't mean it's bad. And just because it's new doesn't mean it's good. Actually, my dad taught me that one. 7, scoreboards matter a lot. 8, cannot do epic things with mismatched people. Find talent and keep them along for the ride by rewarding and valuing them because people will always be your competitive advantage. And 9, always check credentials. Get in the habit of doing that. Always. Facebook lies a lot. That's it. That's the talk.